Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm sitting in today with the director of the Learning Center, Megan Rehm. Megan, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's good to be here.
So for people familiar with Megan, you may have recognized that voice because Megan came down earlier in 2018, did a couple reads for us about the Learning Center, and we'll hopefully be able to get her to do one again today about what new things they have going on at the Learning Center. One of the things that I did want to also bring up is we're also joined by Nightly News treasurer Andrew Day. Andrew, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Paul.
I'm assuming that you're feeling a bit more comfortable now that you've been doing this for a few times now.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to get a hang of it.
Well, and that's the thing, anytime you're doing audio broadcasting, the first couple of times you're going to be really nervous, and then from then on, it's just going to be business as usual,
Yeah, exactly.
So why we have Megan here today is this is something we will be talking about at the end of the show. It's her faculty colloquium series. She's going to be doing a presentation called Topics in Ethnomathematics. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that entails. But first, we're going to talk about the Learning Center and the Math Bootcamp that you had a part of. Andrew's also here today because of his interaction and basically working at the Learning Center. So Andrew is one of our tutors in math and in accounting. So Andrew, thank you very much for helping out our fellow knights in some very difficult subjects.
You're welcome, Paul.
So first of all, Megan, let's talk a little bit more about the Learning Center. So obviously you've been here for quite some time. You've made some tremendous inroads in the Learning Center. Can you share with us some of the things that maybe have happened over the past year or so that you'd really like to highlight about things that have been going on up in the Learning Center?
Thank you, Paul, for the opportunity to do that. We've been expanding the subject matter that we try to help students with. So we've had students in there working on their anatomy and physiology. That didn't used to happen. And we've had students come in just to get some help with their reading comprehension in, let's say, their criminal justice courses. And we're happy to help them with whatever they do need. A lot of our tutors branch out. Like you said, Andrew was not hired to do accounting, but he can help with some of the accounting students. And we have a wonderful accounting tutor who has taken on macroeconomics this term just because a lot of students have been struggling with some of the concepts there. So we've got the flexibility and we've got good manpower and can really address student needs. It's good.
That's one of the interesting things to me is we have so many different subject matters here on campus. So we only have a finite number of majors, but within those majors, there are many niche classes. How do you deal with if somebody comes to you about a topic that maybe you're unfamiliar with or maybe you don't necessarily have the staff that is familiar with that subject? What do you do in that case?
Sometimes we can't address the need immediately, but then I usually consult with the professors to find out what is it that the students will be facing, how can we prepare for this in the future, and we try to either get the staff or get the resources, such as the textbooks, so that we can work with the students to figure it out.
Andrew, I think this is a good time to bring you in here because how is it when you're working with someone? So I'm just going to walk it back a second. One of the things that my daughter has been notorious for over her time as a middle school and high school student is she'll come to me and she'll say, I don't understand this problem, not realizing that I wasn't sitting there in class with her that day, and nor have I even opened a math book for quite a long time. So she would have to allow me to read through the book and try to understand the questions. How do you deal when somebody comes in and talks to you about a specific math problem, and while obviously you're well-versed in math, how do you just jump right into it without having that background context?
Usually with basic algebra, it's really simple topics like solving for x and basically linear equations and stuff like that. And it's, I don't know, it's not too much creativity there. And I think there's a lot of just factual information that needs to be addressed with the students, making sure they get their the words right and making sure you use the right vocabulary with them. I think a lot of students have different levels of math intensity almost. And I think there's a lot of give and leave when you're in a session with a student. And I think, if you really care, you can end up really helping the students. And I think a couple of my students are really doing a lot better since I've taking them on.
Now, how's that feel when you tutor someone? How does that feel to know that maybe they come back later and they say, look, I got an A on this test, or my grade went up 10%. How does that make you feel as a tutor? I mean, I know it's part of your job, but
knowing that I made a person like not have to cry after class is over is it's definitely a good feeling, and I think definitely keeping students on campus. I know one student last year that I had last semester that I had tutored. He ended up leaving and withdrawing from college entirely. So I mean, it's a little bit better when they start doing better in school rather than when they start doing worse.
Isn't it amazing when you work with somebody and you see the progress there and you see the talent that individual has? It's really quite profound, and that's part of the reason I do what I do. Megan, let me ask you one question before we move into some other things that we want to chat about today. Math anxiety. One of the things that I constantly hear from students, especially because I work very closely with students as far as the registration process goes, is that they don't want to take math. And even if it comes to the point where they are literally 2 terms away from graduating and they need two math classes, they still try to figure out a way to push math off and push math off. What is it about math that just bothers so many people to have such anxiety over taking a class like this?
Well, honestly, I would look at it from the psychological standpoint. Just from the educational psychology, if students feel like they are doomed because they are either good at math or they're bad at math, then they're going to really hesitate to even attempt it. If they believe that they can progress, then they're more likely to try and make a valiant effort in order to learn the material that they previously didn't know. Unfortunately, so many of us have years of experience not doing well in a subject that we start to believe, hey, I can't succeed. And that's when they really start to feel the anxiety.
And Megan, what do you say to these students, because I'm positive you've heard this at least at some point, who believe that math isn't something they're going to need in their everyday lives?
Honestly, they won't be using it much in their everyday lives. And I recognize that many of the faculty who work here will admit that they haven't used an algebra equation since they left college. But it's still a valuable way of thinking. It's still a valuable mind to develop so that you can think logically through things. It's not like it's completely useless, and it's not like it's going to be a bad thing to take on a challenge and to succeed at it. So that's usually what I tell them.
I think what's so interesting about math is it's problem solving. I mean, that's what math is. But in our daily lives, that's what we're going to have to do. I don't care where you work. You're always going to have to identify problems and try to figure out a way to solve them. So by using this type of thought process, even though it's not necessarily with X or Y or any of the other fractions and all this other stuff, it's still an important way to walk through the idea of logically thinking through problems. And that's what I try to talk to students about all the time. So I think it's valiant that you, not only both of you, teach and mentor students in such a subject that is, I hear either I'm good at math or most people say I'm not good at math. And to your point, they just don't even want to try. So I do want to put it out there. Look, we do have to take math here at Central Penn College, so if you ever are looking for additional help, you can always go to the Learning Center. I do just want to point out that the Learning Center is open from 10 to 6, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and from 10 to 2 on Fridays. Megan, you also wanted me to mention that for our online students, we do offer some flexibility as far as Learning Center hours. Do you mind sharing that?
The online students often work full-time, and so 6 p.m. is about when they're available. If that's the case, then we try to stay later. We've stayed as late as 8 o'clock. I've taken students online through online tutoring at 8 o'clock p.m. just based on their work schedule. So I want them to know that if they can't make it during our regular hours, they can always email Learning Center at centralpenn.edu and ask for a flexible time.
That's awesome, and I'm so glad. And I'm sure you're also available for our evening students as well, so long as they make an appointment with you in advance. All right, well, the second thing I really wanted to chat with you about, Megan, is something that has kind of been put in place over the last year, a major project that you've had to work on called the Math Bootcamp. The Math Bootcamp is to prepare students at Central Penn College to take their placement tests. and it's going to prepare those students that are either preparing to enter into the college prior to their placement tests, or for students who may have taken their placement tests and maybe didn't do as well on them as they'd hoped, and maybe to retake those tests. So Megan, where did this idea come from, and tell us about the successes?
This actually was inspired by Dr. Melissa Whaler. She talked about learning without boundaries and wanted to find a way to help our students in math, specifically as they were preparing for their math courses. And so we identified topics in basic algebra that students struggle with. I looked at the placement tests that we've been using and identified which topics would be covered by most of the students' exams. And we started to create lessons and units, and I filmed a lot of videos that are interactive. Students can watch about a 1-minute segment, and then they can take a practice question, and then another 1-minute segment. We've got quizzes in this boot camp so that students can check their progress. And really, when students have taken the placement test prior to the Math Bootcamp and then taken it again afterward, we've seen some significant improvement in scores.
That's unbelievable. And one of the things that I try to, and I've talked several students through this once I learned the process of the placement tests. What's very interesting about these placement tests is you can take them more than once. Many people don't take them at all. I've heard of several students who didn't take them, whether for one reason or another. But it really, in the long run, if you can do this Math Bootcamp, you can pass your placement exams. That's one less class that you have to take. That's money that is saved, or money that you save other people who might be helping you with your education. So just something that's relatively simple to progress through is such a benefit in the long run. And how do you expect students, like how long would you expect a student to spend with this Math Bootcamp in a perfect world?
In a perfect world, it would take them a couple weeks. And I've seen some students who really, really work hard at it, and they start not feeling confident, and then a couple weeks later, they do really well. Some students just breeze through it because they just needed a refresher.
That's fantastic. Now, Andrew, have you ever worked with any students that are either in the basic algebra classes or preparing for placement tests?
I haven't had any students mention it to me.
So, but do you think that it's something that in the future, maybe if you do have somebody coming in, or if nothing else, you might be able to educate some of the other students on campus, asking them if they took their placement tests and if they'd be willing to retake it with the help of the Math Bootcamp. That might be something you might be able to help them out with.
I think I'd enjoy that. I think helping some more students and maybe getting some more time, even in the Learning Center or wherever the Math Bootcamp is taking place. I think I'd be good to fill a position there.
That's awesome. Well, Megan, one more thing about the Math Bootcamp. How would a student, let's just say in this particular case, let's say there's a student out there taking the placement test, didn't do as well on them as they'd hoped, wants to take them again, but they don't want to just walk in there. How can they set up this Math Bootcamp?
They can just email me, actually. Often they do it through the admissions office because the admissions office runs the placement test. But they would be welcome to email me directly, say I'd like to be enrolled in the Math Bootcamp. I enroll them in a Blackboard course, and then I let them know they can address any questions through me, and it's all self-paced. There's no instructor. There's nobody monitoring it for them. So once they're in, they just do whatever they need to with it.
What I think is very interesting is, this is sort of an idea from a non-math perspective that I've been floating around for new students who transfer in. I teach a lot of the CPC Foundations classes, and we do have, when people transfer in, a lot of people don't take that class, but unfortunately, these same students are missing out on a lot of Central Penn-centric information, and I'm hoping at some point to put something similar together. My only concern was, would people do it? When there's not a grade or there's not credits tied to such a course, often what I've found is the motivation for somebody to look into a course such as this has been minimal, but that doesn't seem to be the case for your Math Bootcamp.
I think the explanation is that placement test at the end of it. If their goal is, let me skip basic algebra, then they're motivated. And if they get into the Math Bootcamp rather, and they find that it's just not going very well, some of them actually email me back and say, no, I think I'll just take the course. But it allows them the freedom to make the decision. And there is something holding them accountable in the end.
That's very true. Well, I'm so glad that we have this opportunity. So anyone can email Megan or the Learning Center if they'd like more information or to be enrolled in the Math Bootcamp. So, Megan, thank you very much for setting up that Math Bootcamp. I know it was a lot of hard work, and I'm sure students very much appreciate it. The final thing that I would like to talk about with Megan today is something, and really kind of the main reason that we're having you here today. Obviously, we want students to learn about the Learning Center and the Math Bootcamp, but I also want to talk to you about a very special opportunity you have coming up on Wednesday, December 5th at 12:10 in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. It'll be Megan Rehm presenting her faculty colloquium series on topics in ethnomathematics. So, we did have a brief discussion, so you kind of gave me a little primer on what this is, but, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but in a sentence or two, I'm not going to limit you to one sentence. In a sentence or two, can you just tell us what ethnomathematics is, and then maybe we can talk a little bit more about what specifically you're going to discuss?
Ethnomathematics is the study of math in a cultural context. So normally we think of it as being just hard numbers and there's one right answer, but people use math very differently. As I was saying earlier, algebra isn't something that people use in their everyday life. However, they do find mathematical ways to think. And especially in foreign cultures, it's interesting to see how they use math when we wouldn't have expected them to. So, would you like examples of?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Examples are always the best.
So, during graduate school, I spent some time in Yucatan, Mexico, and we visited a lot of the Mayan ruins there. And one of the things I was studying was the geometry that the Maya used. And now they built huge cities with very primitive techniques as far as we know. And so they must have had some excellent mathematical knowledge in order to use rudimentary tools and create something like that. And it's amazing to study how they used shapes and angles and did all of that without the number system that we're accustomed to. That's the sort of ethnomathematics that is interesting for me to study.
Now, where did you even start with some of this research? I mean, there had to be, what was your research question when you went into this work that you did in grad school?
Honestly, when I was looking for a graduate program, I thought of what interested me, and that was a lot of the history of mathematics. And so I found a professor at Millersville University who emphasized ethnomathematics, and she's Latin American. I have a whole lot of Latin American experience, and so I thought it was a great fit. And she's the one who introduced me to a lot of the resources I got involved with.
Now, how did this come up with the Faculty Colloquium series? Was this something that you've just recently published or, presented in some fashion?
2 summers ago in 2016, I went to Guatemala to an ethnomathematics conference, actually, and presented some of my research on the language that tribes in South America use to describe their numbers. And Karen Hurst, I believe, is the one who knew I had gone to Guatemala because I was working here as an adjunct at the time, and she suggested that maybe I could present some of that research. That was a 10-minute presentation. I have expanded it greatly for this colloquium, but it will be based on what I started there.
And what does this mean to you to be able to present? I mean, because to be honest, Megan, I've known you since pretty much you've been working here, and I had no idea that you were such a mathematical historian. What does this mean to you to have this opportunity to present in front of your colleagues?
Well, I am super excited because I do find this fascinating, and it humanizes a subject that I don't think gets that perspective very often. So I think everybody who can keep up with some of the geographical and linguistic lingo that's going to be in this presentation is probably going to really enjoy it.
That was one thing too. I've obviously presented in front of people before. That's part of what I do on a daily basis, and we all do. But presenting in front of my colleagues was a unique experience, and I had the opportunity to do that twice this year. Once for the once for the CPC film series when I presented The Big Lebowski, and once recently when I participated as part of a Common Hour where we were talking about social injustices in terms of sports. So that was really, really cool, but I think it offers our colleagues a very unique perspectives about our own backgrounds. And unfortunately, because we don't, our colleagues don't spend a lot of time in the classroom with us, they don't necessarily get that from us. And this is one of the things I'm really looking forward to this particular colloquium series, Megan, is because this is something, we've been colleagues for a long time, but I literally never knew about you. And it's so interesting because this is what you are passionate about. This is who makes you who you are. And I think that's why I really, really enjoy these series very, very much, and I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing this.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, we are winding down to the end of the podcast, and I just want to loop right back around to the Learning Center and ask the both of you one final question. As far as the Learning Center goes, Megan, why is this the way that you've chosen to spend your career helping others?
I find that one-on-one interaction with students becomes much more responsive than classroom lectures, obviously, and it can address not only the academic needs, but it can address some of the surrounding needs that students have. And I really appreciate the team we have of faculty and staff at this college so that when I see a student struggling with something, I can link them up with the right people. I like knowing the students on a more personal basis like this.
And I think being at Central Penn College affords us that opportunity. We have a much greater potential to spend as faculty one-on-one, but we also have so many different avenues that students, if they need help, can get it, whether that be in your office, the Learning Center, whether it be in the library, whether it be in office hours of faculty or many other avenues. I do think that's one of the main benefits about a student coming here to Central Penn College. Andrew, I have to go to you. Being a college student, obviously you're also a student athlete. We had you on recently talking soccer and wrapping up the soccer season. Why is this something that you've chosen to spend your time on at Central Penn College when there's, frankly, a lot of different places you could be working and a lot of other things you could be doing? Why is this a place that you want to spend your time?
Well, I was offered the position by Karen Hurst after acing my statistics course. And I feel, I don't know, I particularly like the one-on-one training, and I think it's really influential on the students, especially, as well as it's group pay. I think they give the off-campus payment, and I've been working at the library as well, and I found that the tutoring center allows for more student-based work interaction, and I think compared to anything else as far as moving in the direction towards becoming maybe even the teacher myself, I think being a tutor really exemplifies the basic understandings of teaching people how to act and how to behave.
Well, and one of the unique things I've known and found out about Andrew over the last couple months of knowing him is Andrew's quite a prolific writer as well. And in addition, you run something like 9-10 miles a day?
That was about a year ago. But currently I'm doing about 3 or 4 books I've been reading.
A week or
a day?
Wait a minute. 3 or 4 books a day?
Yeah, and I've also been... during the soccer season, I was doing about 16 miles on the bike a day after practice. But I mean, other than that, I've been doing mostly studying and stuff like that.
You never cease to amaze me, Andrew.
Well, thank you.
Well, Megan, I just want to say thank you very much for spending time here. We are certainly going to remind everybody that the Learning Center is open from 10 to 6 Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 10 to 2 on Friday, and that there is flexibility if you reach out to the Learning Center at centralpenn.edu. Those of you maybe who have never taken the math placement tests or would like to retake the math placement tests can also email Megan or the Learning Center to get enrolled into the Math Bootcamp. And of course, last but not least, on Wednesday, December 5th at 12:10 in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater, please come down and see the Faculty Colloquium Series with Megan, Topics in Ethnomathematics. So, Megan, thank you so very much for spending time with the Nightly News Podcast today.
Thank you, Paul.
And Andrew, as always, it's such a pleasure to have you. And please, keep me up to date with all these books you're reading, man.
Yeah.
How do you read 3 or 4 books a day?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of time on my hands. I don't play video games, so I have to find something alternative to do.
I love it. Well, Andrew, as always, thank you so much for spending time today.
You're welcome.
All right, so for Andrew Days, the Nightly News Treasurer, and also Learning Center Accounting and Algebra Tutor, and for the Learning Center Director, Megan Rehm, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll be right back with Adrienne Thoman to talk December events. We'll be right back.
This is Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams, and you are listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Nightly News Podcast. We just heard from Megan Rehm talking more about the Learning Center, and now we are here with everybody's favorite guest, Adrienne Thoman.
Hello, glad to be here.
Adrienne, welcome back to the podcast. You're just returning from a well-deserved vacation, or can we call it vacation if you're working?
Well, but it was fun work. I was teaching Zumba while I was there, so.
So Megan just got back from Mexico, from Cancun, and I thought it was very interesting that while she's there as part of a quote-unquote vacation, she is working. So how did you hook that up?
So it's a really great promotion. It's actually a company that called Fit Bodies that I'm a Zumba instructor. So Zumba has this relationship with this other organization that puts fitness instructors on all-inclusive resorts. So we get to vacation while we're there. We get to enjoy the resort, and we get a very nice discount on the rate. And then our responsibility is to teach, which is amazing and fun anyway. I mean, to teach on a beach, there's nothing better.
So just as an aside here, because this is very interesting to me. Now, I knew you taught Zumba, and we're actually going to be talking more about your opportunity, listeners, to have Zumba with Adrienne. How did you get hooked up with this vacation thing and work at the same time? Like you had mentioned, there were some things like, is it different working with people who are on vacation when they're in your classes versus people who are going through the grind of daily life?
I think it's a blast because so typically when you're on vacation and when you're there, you're not looking for, let's see how many squats we can get. I got to burn those calories. The majority of the classes I've been able to teach, it's all about, I want to have fun. I want to dance. It's, I think, a little bit more of a laid back mentality. And half the time, I mean, this would not happen in our dance studio here, but you're teaching and your students are wearing swimsuits. So that's definitely different. They may or may not have sneakers on. So depending on the resort and what you're doing, they definitely come at it at a different intensity, which is really neat.
And this is something that you do like multiple times per year? I mean, is this something that you're kind of more getting into now?
Well, I usually try to do it. This is the third year we've done it. And then this time, actually, I was with two of my girlfriends who are also Zumba instructors. So the three of us were able to have a good time and do it together. And I'm going again later with my husband this year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you have that opportunity, not only to get away, but to do it for relatively inexpensively. Because trust me, I've been to some of those resorts before, and they are not cheap. I'll just put it to you that way, depending on where you go. Well, Adrienne, that's going to segue right into one of the things that we do want to talk about. Obviously, Adrienne comes down every single month to talk about the Central Penn activities calendar. And while December is always one of those interesting months because we are getting geared up for the holiday season, still have a jam-packed calendar that we're going to be talking with Adrienne about today. But the reason that I started off on the Zumba kick is we've got some pretty amazing opportunities for students, faculty, and staff to get some of their wellness on top of their thoughts because of Zumba and belly dance and turbo kick. So we have Zumba every Tuesday at 4:30 with Adrienne. That's in the dance studio on the 4th, 11th, and 18th of December. We have belly dance with Jessamina at 4:30 on Thursdays in the dance studio. And we have turbo kick with Amanda on December 13th at 4:30 p.m. So Adrienne, obviously for you, this is this is something that's right in your wheelhouse. How did you decide, or how was it decided that these are things that you really wanted to offer here on campus as a way to help promote students, faculty, and staff wellness?
Well, we've definitely had students and faculty and staff that have expressed interest in wanting to have fitness elements here on campus. I don't want to bring up the holiday season and the cookies and the, Thanksgiving is right around the corner, so we're going to have all that goodness. So it's just a great opportunity to just kind of build those healthy habits. I found Jessamina and Amanda, who teaches the Turbo Kick. They're both wonderful. We've also had other instructors that have come in to teach different formats. We had one of my girlfriends, she came here to teach Pound for a little while. We had an alumni coming to teach Pilates. So I think we even had a yoga instructor for a little bit. We try to mix it up, bring in some different things. We had a hip hop dance instructor, just try to offer a variety.
Now, how, if somebody is interested in any of these, and we will include all the dates with this, how would they go about registering?
They don't need to. They just show up.
Okay, so it's walk in, and maybe if somebody just needs some more information, they can contact you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So again, that's December 4th, 11th, and 18th with Zumba. With Adrienne Thoman, everybody's favorite guest. December 6th, Belly Dance with Jessamina. That's at 4:30 in the dance studio. And on Thursday, December the 13th, Turbo Kick with Amanda, also at 4:30. Perfect time. How long do most of these classes last?
Usually 45 minutes to an hour. And I mean, they're all so different. I love Zumba, but they all are so much fun. The belly dance, last time Jessamina brought in scarves for us to play with, and we wear the little jingle belts and had so much fun with it. And then the Turbo Kick, you're in there and you're punching and you're kicking, and they're all a blast.
Sounds like a lot of fun, Adrienne, and I appreciate the fact that, just after Thanksgiving here and getting ready for the holiday season, it certainly isn't a bad idea to make sure you're at least trying to get some exercise in. So thank you very much, Adrienne, for not only orchestrating it, but also teaching it as well. All right, another thing that we want to bring up is the end of the term staple that we always have, a combination of basically during the last 8 days of our term, some major events that we always have. First one's going to be on December 13th. If you're hungry after Turbo Kick, you can hang around for late night breakfast, which will take place at the Night and Day Cafe from 9 to 10:30 p.m. We'll also have Cram Jam, which takes place always on Sunday of week 11. That's going to be December 16th. Special hours this time around that you notified me of. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
So we are starting at 7 p.m. as always. We'll see how late we go. I think we're going to try to do it till 3 a.m. We used to run till 5, but, I'm an old lady, so take it easy.
That's totally ridiculous to even say that. You do know at this point when we're recording, you're still trying to hammer down the exact schedule. So we do want to make sure that for Cram Jam that you see Student Central closer to the time for a little bit more detail.
It's definitely going to include some of the main things that we usually do. Pizza at midnight. We have a movie. Usually there's bingo and lots of prizes and gift cards to give away. Sometimes we've done like a make one, take one and some kind of craft. We always have breakfast in the morning with eggs and pancakes and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's going to be stuff literally the entire time. We'll keep you busy, but the Activities Advisory Board is the one that plans out that schedule, and we'll be finalizing it soon.
And of course, you're going to have several other things that week, including Finals Week Wake Up, which you have on Wednesday, December 19th from 8:30 to 10:30. Always fun to see you. You get literally the largest container and filled with donuts. Like, how do you even carry that? If anyone's ever seen Adrienne, she's literally walking with a 3-foot-long box of donuts, which all kinds of different flavors and things like that. But I've never even seen a donut box that size. Where do you get that from?
Giant Bakery. I
have never seen a box of that size for donuts. I mean, obviously, that's something you have to put in advance.
Well, that's what happens when you order 12 dozen.
It's incredible. So I encourage you to stop by in the ATEC lobby on December 19th. Adrienne, before we get to the Adrienne's Featured 3, there's one I just want to take an aside. The fall term is always one that's very complex. In that, literally in the middle of the term, we get nearly a 5-day break. And this year is going to be even longer because we have Monday off school. Can you give some tips for navigating for students in that? So this podcast is going to come out just after the Thanksgiving holiday. And so students will come back and they'll have 4 more weeks of classes. Mm-hmm. But with Christmas and the holiday season on the horizon for our students, I often find that students fall into a little bit of a rut because they go home, we still have coursework going on, we're still in the middle of projects, and sometimes when they leave school for that extended period of time, students come back a little sluggish, maybe need to turn back the clock a little bit and see what had recently passed in class. Can you just give some tips for our students that how they're going to navigate coming back from this Thanksgiving break and ending the term strong?
Well, definitely the holidays can distract and pull our attention away from coursework, but I would definitely encourage our students to jump right back in it, look at their calendars, block out time. You're going to have a lot of distractions with the holidays and everything that you need to do to prepare, but if all right, I'm going to make sure I'm keeping my schedule. I'm going to make sure I'm going to Zumba to keep my energy up. Those are all things that you can do to control. So I know I'm going to do my workout, and then I'm going to do my homework right after that, and maybe reconnecting with their professors and making sure that they are where they need to be. This is a good point to say, is my grade where I need it to be, and what do I have to do to kick it back into gear before the end of the term?
Well, and I think, too, something that is very interesting to me is maybe even come back a day early just so you can get back into the swing of things, get back into the routine. And for many people, I'm not going to say everybody, because people certainly in the last month of class may introduce new things. I think for the most part, many of us, you're coming out of midterms. This is really a good time to take stock. Go back, look at that syllabus, see what projects are coming up. Ask the professor if what major things are coming up, when the final is going to be. This is when the day we get back is the time that I take to really share with the students, this is how the rest of this course is going to go, so you can kind of make plans in that regard. So definitely a time that students have gotten themselves in trouble in the past, just historically in my classes, coming back from the Thanksgiving holiday. But just remember that, before you know it, the term will be over and you'll be at home and enjoying the holidays.
Absolutely.
So thanks for those tips, Adrienne. All right. Well, Adrienne, it is now time for everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3. Adrienne, as we look at December, what is the number one event on the December calendar?
So the first event is going to be the grand reopening open house of our Cultural Diversity Center. So the amazing Megan Peterson, our Director of Equity and Multicultural Affairs, she is reopening this space, rechristening it for our students. It's going to be an amazing student space. She's been doing some decorating in there. She has some cute little throw pillows and just lots of color and fun. But it's going to be a really cool student space that we're going to have our Word Wednesday series. We're going to try to have some more open, kind of loose, open conversations in there. I think it's going to end up being really cool. And she's going to kick it off here at this open house.
And the Cultural Diversity Center is located just outside of the Night Owl Computer Lab down in the lower level of Bollinger Hall toward the end of the hallway. So you can always you can stop by and check it out. But this will be their grand reopening open house, and that's going to be on Tuesday, December the 4th from 11 to 1 p.m. Adrienne, what is the second event on Adrienne's Featured 3 for December?
So number 2, we are having also on December 4th, an organization called REACH come in to do some HIV testing. An important part of our health is our sexual health. So knowing your status and knowing what you need to do to protect yourself is very important. So here's an opportunity. It's free of charge for our students. It's a simple little finger prick, so it's not super invasive. It's just quick and easy, and you'll get your results within 10 minutes right there. A great free service, and just to know that you are, your status, know you're doing what you can to keep yourself safe.
Now, let me ask you, why do you think it's such a taboo subject for college students, or really almost anybody, to get this type of testing? Do you think it's out of fear? Do you think it's just, unfamiliar with the process? What are your thoughts?
I think it could be any of those things. It's a little scary to walk into that room with someone you don't know, and certainly they do their best to be safe and welcoming and make it comfortable for you. But it can be a little intimidating, especially if you're not comfortable in the beginning talking about sexual health and what you're doing. So you kind of take a step outside your comfort zone, which I'm encouraging all of our students to do.
Well, absolutely, and we have to, and especially for a lot of these different things that you may find that there are certainly treatments that I'm sure REACH could also help you with, depending on the circumstance. So that will be on Tuesday, December 4th, just after the Cultural Diversity Center grand reopening. REACH HIV testing will be in ATEC 211. There will be an info table in the ATEC lobby, and that will be from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. All right, Adrienne, what is the final event on Adrienne's Feature 3 for December.
I'm pretty excited about this final one because it actually is kicking off a brand new movie series that we're going to have in our Capital Blue Cross Theater. One of the things that we really wanted to try to do was to help build opportunities for our students that might have families, faculty and staff. I know, there are a lot of families there that can come to be on campus, have a great day. So we are actually doing what's called the Family Flick series. So I think it's the third Saturday of the month in December, happens in January, February, and March as well, that we have those dates scheduled, and we're going to have a kid-friendly movie, free popcorn, and just have a great afternoon that can be for our students, their families, friends, community, everybody.
Now, was this your idea to come up with something like this?
One came out of student activities, yes.
Okay, so when you say that, it was maybe a more collaborative effort, and you're the one that's the champion for the marketing of it, maybe?
I'm going to say that it is a team effort, student activities, me, Janet, of course. She always has a hand in these wonderful opportunities. So,
and I think this is a perfect opportunity for ways that our students here on campus could come back, maybe share that with their family. I mean, even my family, I don't really get to bring over here all that much. This might be an interesting opportunity for me to share that with them.
Yeah, and the first movie is The House with a Clock in Its Walls, which I haven't seen yet, so I'm excited to see.
I was going to say, this is one that I'm unfamiliar with, but it looks like Jack Black is in it,
Yep.
and I'm a big fan of his work. One final thing that I did want to point out as far as the events calendar, a lot of opportunities here to see our Central Penn's men's and women's Knights basketball teams that are playing at East Pennsboro High School for our home games. So please make sure that you check the activities calendar and check Student Central for more information on how to be a part of those games. The Knights need your help, and they've been playing great basketball thus far, but we need to get some support out there from our students, our faculty, and our staff.
And it means so much to the players when they know that they have people cheering for them in the audience.
So, Adrienne, as always, it's always a pleasure to have you down to take a look at the December calendar and all the things that you have going on. So I do want to do a quick recap. Obviously, at the very beginning of the podcast, we talked about Zumba with Adrienne. That'll be December 4th, 11th, and 18th. We're also talked about Belly Dance with Jessamina, which takes place on December the 6th, and Turbo Kick with Amanda that takes place on December 13th. All of those opportunities start at 4:30. We also talked about the late night breakfast, which is December 13th from 9 to 10:30 p.m., and Cram Jam, which will take place on December 16th. That'll be from 7 p.m. until ? Depending on how late Adrienne can make it. Adrienne's Featured 3 is December 4th, the Cultural Diversity Center grand reopening. That'll be in the Cultural Diversity Center from 11 to 1. And Reach HIV Testing will be in, there'll be an info table in the ATEC lobby. That will be on December 4th from 1:30 to 3:30. And the final event on Adrienne's Featured 3, on December 15th, the Family Flick series, The House with a Clock on Its Walls, takes place at the Capital Blue Cross Theater from 1 to 3 p.m. I think I got you covered, right?
That's it, yep.
All right. Well, Adrienne, I must tell you, obviously I'll see you around campus, but, our listeners, I just hope you have a very happy holiday, and I just want you to know that the Nightly News really appreciates the fact that you take time each month to come down and chat with us about all of the hard work that you're doing on the activities calendar. Every month, it gets more and more full, always wonderful events for our students, our faculty, and our staff.
Well, I appreciate that. You do an amazing job with the Nightly News and this podcast, so I appreciate you.
That means a lot for me to hear that from you as well, so thank you very much. All right, well, for Student Activities Director Adrienne Thoman, this is Professor Paul Miller, and this has been another edition of the Nightly News Podcast. We'll see you again in the winter term, as this is our last podcast for the term. So keep on listening, check out some of our old episodes, and we will catch you in the new year. We'll see you next time.